Today's episode is brought to you by our Patreon family. Join our growing community for early access to every episode, exclusive video versions of the podcast, behind-the-scenes footage, full-length product demos, and more. We appreciate you. Welcome back to Martins and More. My name's Maury Rutch. Spoon Phillips is traveling today. There is a small chance he might be able to join us before this program is over, but I cannot wait. We've been trying to get these guys on camera for some time now, and I'm extremely pleased to bring on some really cool people from the West Coast and the professional pickup community, the acoustic guitar pickup community. Would you please welcome to the program Gary and Laurel from Trance Audio. How are you guys doing today?
Hi, everybody. Yeah, we're doing good today.
Right on. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here. I know you guys are very busy, especially this year. We'll get to that very soon. I want to just take this opportunity to educate our viewers and listeners and let them know that Trance Audio is a pickup company from the West Coast. They've been in business for, I would say, exactly 30 years. That's part of the reason we're doing this program this year. And before I get tongue-tied and try to say some things that I'm not entirely sure of, can I ask you guys, to get everybody caught up to speed, what exactly is Trance Audio and how did it start?
Trance Audio is an electronics company. We make pickups and preamps for acoustic guitars. And also we do work for the sound effects community and some other things like that. Company started... Well, actually, it started back in the 80s, and it was a system that I was playing around with that I built for myself. I played electric guitar for a long time and was starting to get interested in some of the acoustic guitar performers back in the mid-80s. Michael Hedges specifically. I saw a concert of his and was very impressed with what he was doing. And met him after the show, very gracious, and we got a chance to sort of strike up a friendship. And I started out basically by building a couple of accessories for him and for him to use in his live show. And then later on, I helped him by designing the wireless systems, the infrastructure that he used for that. But I was mostly interested in just building something to try and help my fledgling acoustic guitaring along. And when I had a system that was working, I took it to San Francisco and showed it to a friend of mine there. And one day out of the blue, somebody that he had talked to about it called me and wanted to know if he could come and see what I was doing. We spent an afternoon playing around and showed him what I had built and how I was using it. And at the end of the conversation, he said, "Well, how much for one of those?" And I made up some ridiculously high number, and he thought about it for a couple of minutes and said, "How soon can I get one?" That's kind of the genesis of where Trance Audio started. I never actually figured I'd build any more than one or two of these systems, and I did it more or less as a favor to this guy because he came and was so nice, and I couldn't say no. And then he took it and started showing it to his friends, and it's like the old, and they told two people, and they told two people, and
so on
and so on and so on. And next thing I know, I'm sort of waist deep in this thing. And after a couple of years, I went in with a friend of mine, and we decided that we would actually make a business out of this, and that's the humble beginnings of Trance Audio.
Wow. So anybody that's spreading a rumor that you came on the scene and were just in a big hurry to outdo everybody and build this big pickup company, that wouldn't be true at all. That's crazy.
That's about the farthest thing from it. It was just it out as this system for myself just to goof around. I've been meaning to try and dig it out and take a picture of it. I'm sure it's got to be in a storage space somewhere. It looked like a little mini bread box with some knobs on it. I had it set up so I could have a stereo system. I had a magnetic pickup and a whole variety of different transducers. Because when I talked to Michael Hedges, he said, "Oh, well, I'm using a magnetic pickup and using this transducer on the soundboard." And I thought, well, that's a great idea. That kind of combines the best of both worlds. And so I was doing it too. I had a whole variety of different ones. I had a Texas transducer and an ATD transducer. And let's see what else. Oh, I had a Barkus Berry transducer that I had gotten, a long time before, one of those insider pickups, and tried a whole bunch of different things. And it was interesting because they all sounded different. So each one of them brought something different to the party. So later on, when I started working on my own transducer design, I was kind of looking to all of those and saying, well, I like the top end of this one. And I like the materials. So I ripped them all apart to see how they worked. And I said, oh, I like the materials that were this one. And, I like the way this one was constructed and stuff. So eventually, once I got my own transducer happening, then that was what became a part of my system.
Wow. So if I could put myself in your shoes way back then, your first idea wouldn't have been to make a dual source or triple source to kind of combine what you liked about certain products you've already seen. Was it really the first idea to just make one thing that encompassed all the good qualities of the stuff you've already tried?
Yeah, because that's the way I think. Back then, I was working as a technician for a synthesizer company in Santa Cruz. I had moved to Santa Cruz probably a year earlier than that from Sacramento. And when I was working there, it's, you see manufacturing processes and how to put things together. So when I designed my system, I thought, well, try and make this as easy as possible, get all this stuff put together and have a common control center so that I could, get a sound that I liked and then be able to send that out to the house. So all of my designs initially were based around the idea that the musician should have control of what he wanted the audience to hear rather than try to leave a whole bunch of it to the sound man. So
Mm.
So when the first product that we made, which actually got reviewed in Acoustic, no, it was in Guitar Player magazine, was the Talisman, which was a ridiculously over-designed rack mount system, and that's the system that Jackson Browne uses. Yeah. We built less than 100 of them, and Jackson has
8 or 10 or
something
he's got
like
a bunch
that.
of them.
He's got a bunch of them. He got one, really liked it, and then, can I get another one? And then it was another one, and then he started giving them to people. So,
Oh, geez.
then that kind of
makes a great gift.
Yeah, so we had the big rack mount system, and then after a year or so, as I started talking to these people out in the field, they said, "Well, is there something that could be smaller and maybe cheaper?" So I think we were charging $1,200 or $1,500 for the rack mount systems.
Well, it was a ton of hand wiring. And
yeah. These things were really, they weren't just, pieces of equipment. They were also works of art. They had the hand built wiring looms inside, and I actually designed built these really specialized preamps that were encased in modules and sealed in epoxy to put in these things. So there was a lot of handwork that went into these. But the idea was it would be nice to make something that would kind of give the same level of performance but be smaller, and we could make it cheaper, and people wouldn't have to pay so much for it. So that's kind of
that was the Amulet stereo system.
Yeah, so that was the first really big commercial production thing, and that was great because it could be battery powered or you could power it from an AC adapter. A lot of people put those in their racks, and it was small and easy to use. It was a pretty good product.
Do me a favor and walk me backwards. If somebody was, I'll assume it's the mid 90s now, and they want to buy the stereo system, if they found a way to get the Talisman, how different is the Talisman? Or is that just a big deep dive into a geeky rabbit hole that nobody's going to want to listen to?
That's the
big deep dive.
That's the deep dive.
Yes, don't go into that rabbit hole.
Yeah.
Okay.
When I showed it to Larry Craig, who was the main guy for Neil Young. He's done Neil Young's acoustic guitar stuff for decades. He's semi-retired now, but his thing was, he looked at it, he goes, "Oh my God, this thing is like a race car." He goes, "It's great. It's a lot of potential," but he goes, for the average consumer, he calls them average Joe or Joe average. He said, "This is way too much." He goes, this will never catch on. So that's where the Amulet stereo came from. And we built a bunch of those and actually ended up using those for some of their instruments. They did the Jackson Browne
Signature
signature guitar, and that used for stereo system. And Sheryl Crow saw that. Jackson showed it to her, and she said, I want that. So she went to Gibson and said, yes, they wanted to do her signature guitar with her. And she said, well, only if you put the Trance audio system in it. So had them put in a number of J45s and other guitars that Gibson has made.
So timeline-wise, what year are we talking when the stereo system replaced the Talisman?
Oh, this was
95.
95, right around there. I think that was the first time we did that, because we'd actually been building the Talisman for about a year or 2 years, maybe. We were building it, and then we incorporated the company in 94, I think. And then probably the year after that, 95, is when we produced the first, small stereo system. And that was a big success because it, kind of incorporated a lot of features that people wanted.
So I know a lot of DIY players out there, or maybe even some entrepreneurs, are going to ask themselves, how do you go from making a couple of systems for yourself, showing them to Michael Hedges, and then fast forward less than 2 years later, Neil Young and Jackson Browne are on board. Did you make any effort to I don't want to say that you're the pickup company to the stars, but I can probably reference this, at least in my point of view, from a weekend warrior playing in bands. I definitely know that there are people that want to plug in. They don't care what it sounds like. The next level is they want a good sounding undersaddle pickup, and they have some kind of opinion. They want to sound better than the next guy down the block. And then there are people that just want to be able to go, whether it's playing an open mic night or playing in a real concert, and have people walk away saying, damn, that acoustic guitar sounded really good. How did you make the jump from just making them for yourself, and then people like Sheryl Crow and Jackson and Neil getting them?
How would we trace that route?
Well, I think we've tried to figure it out. Was Bill Asher in LA, did he contact us first, or was it Jackson Browne who contacted us first? So I'm not sure.
Well, I think it was Bill Asher for Jackson Browne. Yeah. Bill was doing Jackson's guitars, and word of mouth. Like, we've done pretty much everything word of mouth. So word of mouth had spread to him about the system, and he called and wanted to know if we could get a system together for him, and we did. Sent it down, and he worked on getting everything set up and installed for Jackson, and Jackson really liked what he heard. Then the next thing we know, there's, started getting orders from him, and his word spread. We also got the system reviewed in Acoustic Guitar magazine. So I had contacted them, and they did a review of the Talisman system.
It was that Acoustic Guitar?
Not Acoustic Guitar, Guitar Player magazine. I'm sorry.
Guitar Player.
So they did a review of that in 95 or 96, I guess, something like that. And we started getting a lot of orders for the thing. And that was the point where, we had reached just about the end of whatever number of chassis and circuit boards we had ordered for the Talisman, and wanted to move to something that was easier to manufacture, because there was so much hand labor in making these things. It was a great system, but a lot of work. So, without a huge production staff, which, was just me and a friend at that point in time doing all of the work for these. So it was much easier to go to the next level of the Amulet system. And I think that struck a chord with a lot of people. So that's the circuitous route of how that came to be.
So take a lesson from that. Anything that gets into Bill Asher's hands, it's going to blow up.
Yeah, Bill's been a huge help he's guitar repair guy and builder to the stars down there. He deals with a whole bunch of people. And through his shop, a lot of our systems got installed and went out with national touring acts.
I can only imagine. Yeah, everything I see on Instagram with him just seems like you can't, turn in any direction without doing something really important for somebody really important. And it's not really PC to get into, this versus that, but I can seriously say most people that I talk to, from my point of view, up until now being a guitar store, and somebody would call me and say, I want to put a pickup in my guitar. Either I don't have one, or I've got an old one and I want to get something better. I've I can really say I've never had somebody come in, whether it was long distance or in the store, have an Amulet M installed and come back to say that they weren't happy. Most people, almost, more than 80%, I would bet, would come back saying, I cannot believe how good this thing sounds. Why don't more people know about this? It's still relevant these days, and we're taping this program in early September 2024. I could go back a few weeks, a few months, and a lot of people on the Acoustic Guitar Forum, the unofficial Martin Guitar Forum, most people that find out about this can't believe that they lucked into it. And one of their first questions to me is, why isn't this thing bigger than everything else? Why don't you see Trance Audio amulets or Trance Audio products everywhere you turn? And I guess listening to most of this interview so far, it's a real grassroots thing. You don't seem, I mean, it's my opportunity to ask you, you don't seem to be somebody who's bent on spending the next couple of weeks doing some kind of marketing blast to be the top anything. You just want to make a good product, and it's finding the right people. You don't come across as somebody who wants to surpass everyone else's, at least in marketing, to my opinion.
It would be nice if we did.
Well,
but no, it's not our strong point.
I love the acoustic guitar. I mean, I really dig great players of the acoustic guitar. The chance to actually build something and be a part of helping somebody create their sound or convey their musical ideas to an audience, to me, that's the reward. And so we've never really put a bunch of effort into trying to be, the big guys in the field. To me, the reward of this is just being able to help people make music that's in their head. The idea of, I'm a tool maker. So that's my things. I'm building tools to help people realize the music they've got in their head and get it out to an audience. And if I can make a product that makes it easier for them or gets something out that maybe people wouldn't have gotten a chance to hear otherwise, that's enough. So that's kind of been our company focus, just trying to help people make better music. Makes the world better, in my opinion.
Well, it's pretty impressive, and it's a real nice, who wouldn't want to root for that? I mean, it's in all this commercialism that's burying us these days, and especially on the internet, you can't go anywhere without a commercial. It really feels like you guys are just trying to make something solid, and if it works, it works. And, maybe that is part of the genius about it. That's why people are hooking onto it. So if we remember that this started with the Talisman, quickly became the Stereo, I should probably try to interject a little bit of my story here. When I first figured out what you were doing, it was probably 2000, 2001, and I had been seeing a lot of Jackson Browne's acoustic concerts and, did enough research to realize that's what I was hearing. I remember wanting to send my guitar to you as a player because if I remember correctly, and you can take this opportunity to squash this, I think you were offering somebody could ship the guitar to you. You would install the Amulet stereo, and I remember the installations were kind of crazy in my mind, where you'd attach the lenses to the bridge plate, flip the guitar upside down. It had to dry. There was a mystique about it, right or wrong, that it was kind of an art. It wasn't simply put the pickup in and you're done. You had to sort of be good at it. And I thought, maybe I'll do that. And a year would go by, another year would go by, and I would keep seeing these concerts, and I would keep really wanting to do it. And not to fast forward too far, but when you finally came out with the Amulet M, and I saw that the installation was a little bit easier, it was less, it seemed less daunting. That's really when I discovered you and reached out to speak with you. But going into it from the Stereo, do you remember what year you actually introduced the Amulet M dual mono?
Ooh, that's a good question. I don't have a good answer for that right off the bat in terms of the timeline. I do know that it was kind of serendipitous the way it came about, because it was something I was already starting to think about. And it coincided with us doing the Jackson Browne signature guitar. When I was talking to the people at Gibson, they brought me out to the Bozeman, Montana factory, and we had a meeting out there, took me around, showed me their facilities. Met Ren Ferguson, their master luthier, who's an incredible man, just an incredible artist. And when we were there talking, one of the questions that they posed to me is, do you have anything like this but smaller and something that would be less expensive?
2011, I believe, thereabouts.
Yeah.
Mm, okay.
But in the meantime, I had the year previously, I had been on vacation in Hawaii and was starting to think about this. And when I was out during the day, it cleared my head to think about this project. So I would do that and then come back. And at the hotel at night, I would sit and jot down my notes about it and make a couple of sketches. And I actually sort of designed the basis for the Amulet M system in Hawaii. Um, and I remember I probably in my artifacts somewhere, I probably still have the paper from the hotel that have all my sketches and drawings because I actually envisioned a whole circuit board and what pieces of it would go where on the circuit board.
Oh
And then
God.
when they mentioned this to me at Gibson, it kind of brought the whole thing into focus. And I was able to look at them and go, well, yeah, I actually do have something that I've been thinking about. So they encouraged me to go ahead and develop that. And that was kind of the the impetus to put together the Amulet M.
Oh, thank you, Gibson.
Yeah.
Yeah, once I recognized that was coming around, and I probably caught on to it pretty early. So let's say it was 2011. I remember reaching out to you guys. I don't know if it was a phone call or email, and I can vividly think that what I wanted to do is buy one, and if I like it enough, can I apply to maybe become a dealer and an installer? And you guys said sure, and we had a really nice, warm conversation. And I remember really liking the way it sounded. I was very comfortable putting it in my own guitar. And you guys, I'll tell you, with people listening now, whether listening or not, you guys were so welcoming and so eager. I remember the first two times I spoke with you, you seemed extremely giddy about let me, teach you how to put this in the right way and the basically how to make other people happy with this system. It's not going to be hurry up and do it and cookie cutter it and get the guitar on the bench and get it out of here. Like you got to take some care. And I remember thinking, well, of course, I would love to become one of the people that you can count on, whether somebody's asking you or somebody's asking the internet, where can I go on the East Coast to get this, not only to buy it, but to get it installed. And as soon as I got it in my guitar, on a very, very, very much smaller scale, as when Michael Hedges and Bill Asher would tell friends, I would tell my friends in the Weekend Warrior community, you got to hear this thing. And it didn't take long for me to really make every effort I could to telling people that want to. Like, not everybody wants to go that far and dive that deep, but my friends and my peers that want to sound good on stage, even if it's just at open mics, a lot of people were really starting to like the bridge plate sound. K&K, as you guys know, really became popular around the same time. And I, to my ears, I had been playing that system for a while, and without really painting with too broad a brush and making a quick statement, it sounds to me like the K&K has the bridge plate sound where you're going to hear the strings, the saddle, the bridge in the top, and the bridge plate. The Trance audio took that same idea, and in my opinion, it's less compressed. It's got more headroom. It's more articulate, and it's everything good about a K&K, but it sounds bigger and more open and more lifelike. And I still have a lot of customers who would admit the same thing, but they don't want to fuss with removing a K&K, or they're like, that, I agree with you, but I've already got a K&K, so next time I buy a guitar, I'll consider doing that. But as soon as I got on board and recognized I could really do well putting them in my own instruments, connecting my friends with them, and even if I wasn't the one doing the install, we really did very well very quickly, bringing this to the masses in a really small scale. With as big as our website is, and I know we're not the biggest store or the biggest reach, we were really proud to, the more people sort of got the idea that Trance is something to try, we were very flattered that a lot of people came to us for the advice, and we're proud to be in the conversation of people that finding out about the Trance in our little corner of the internet world and our part of Northeast Pennsylvania. We're really excited to bring this product to people that might not have known that they wanted it until they heard it, and then they really knew they wanted it.
Well, we really appreciate that, and you've had a lot of reach. I mean, we've gotten a lot of questions from people who talk to you, or interactions with people who have gotten systems from you and had installs from you. So that's great. I mean, we've been really happy to have you, and it's been great for us because you've
Thank you.
definitely reached a lot of people that we would not have reached otherwise. So we really appreciate that.
Yeah, I think we knew right away after we talked you'd probably be an excellent resource for us.
Yeah, and we wanted someone who was going to do installs because a lot of people, I mean, there are people who will just not ever want to do their own installs. That's just it. They just don't want to go there, even though it's especially now, it's really not that difficult. So we were really happy to have someone who was willing to do installs and do them correctly. And it's been great for us. So thank you.
Well, thank you. I feel the same way. You're very welcome, and I'm flattered to be involved. And it's funny there. The other day, Lori and I were riding bikes, and I'm crying because this is probably going to really show my age and how I'm not a techie guy. My bike won't get out of third gear. I can ride it in third, but I can't get it back into second or first. And I said I should really figure out how to do that, where I actually pop the chain and put it back in place. And she looked at me and she said, I bet you that's what you think of when people come to you about getting a truss rod adjusted or a pickup installed. Like, what are you so afraid of? But it's the unknown. And I do know that a lot of players that don't know how to do this, or they know what to do, but they don't want to be trying, their first attempt on their own instrument. And they do want to make sure that it's done right. But maybe that's the perfect segue to ask you, if we've already talked about the Talisman graduating to the stereo system, the stereo, I wouldn't say gave way to the dual mono, because for quite a long time you could buy both. You could buy the stereo or the dual mono. Now we're coming up on a pretty historic year where you've actually added another product. And would you like to tie that in with any specific anniversary that you'd be proud to announce?
They're actually hard to believe, how fast the time goes. In my mind, it just seems like yesterday when I was building the Talisman systems.
Yeah, it's 30 years since Trance Incorporated, so
Yeah.
it became an official entity.
So it's longer than that, because I started doing this in the 80s. And like I said, I was building stuff for Michael Hedges, which I guess is probably the first trance audio stuff, although that's not what I was, I actually wasn't calling it anything at the time. I was just doing stuff for friends and various people and stuff like that. But we actually incorporated the business in 94 in the spring, I think.
February,
yeah. Well, that's sort of spring-like. So it's been a long time. I mean, it's amazing to come to this point. So yes, there is a brand new system. I've been working on the design for this for a while. And it's kind of a departure from some of the other designs that I've done in the past, because they've all sort of built on the initial idea and the design that I had for the first system, the Talisman, and then they just became refinements of that. This kind of is going in a different direction, different preamp in the front end, and it's kind of based around the idea that over the years we've done a bunch of custom things for different people. So we've had touring acts. I always have people going, well, could I do this, or could I do that, or add this or add that? We've done custom interfaces for wireless systems, for people that have multi-instrument setups on stage, ways to interface all of that together. We've done boxes that are mixer boxes that will allow people to access effects on stage. It all kind of started with the stereo system. Jackson Browne had a special request where he was using, instead of taking his big rig when he was doing radio interviews and traveling around, he wanted just to be able to use the stereo system on its own, but have independent control of each of the two channels, so that he could set up the mix that he wanted and not have to rely on the people at the radio station to do it. So he could just send them a finished signal. So we started modifying the stereo systems for him. I called it the googly eye mod, because it had a pair of sort of mismatched volume controls on the front of the unit, because there just wasn't enough room to make it look really pretty. So it had this sort of weird googly-eyed look on the front, and that was the beginning of it. And from there, other people started asking us, well, can I get it for this particular tour? Can you make me something for my stage rig? Can I get a tuner box, a mute box, an interface box?
And then the sound design people.
Yeah, and then the sound design people. We had a guy contact us from New Zealand, and he said, I've heard really good things about your system. Could you make something for me to do sound effects recording?
And for Lucasfilm, that was the first contact was somebody from Lucasfilm. And Gary ended up doing a lot of designs on basically modifying the stereo Amulet system to be used not in a guitar, which was kind of, it sounded great, but it was kind of awkward. And then he developed the inducer system, which is specifically for people who are doing sound design to make using our pickups a lot easier.
Yeah, a lot of those ended up going out to
Wow.
Skywalker Ranch and Lucasfilm and places like that. And
all over the world at this point. We
yeah,
get requests from some of the strangest places, but it seems like these guys have their own network and the information is out there, and we continue to get orders for that system.
yeah, oh yeah, and it's
Wow.
funny, we hear the weirdest uses for these things. One of my favorites is a guy was doing a bunch of sound effects for a movie, and they were attaching the transducers to sides of beef and punching the beef.
What?
So they were using our system to pick up the sounds of somebody punching a slab of beef to get, fight sound, stuff like that.
Oh my
And
God.
another time we don't have many repair problems. Stuff typically has not broken down over the years because I'm really meticulous about the design. But we did get one of the inducers back because the guy attached the transducer to the barrel of a rifle and then shot the rifle.
Oh my God.
And it destroyed the transducer, and it produced a signal so big that it destroyed the preamp as well.
Yeah, so don't do that at home, kids.
My God.
Well, I wasn't planning for that. I didn't figure something like that would ever happen. But he did, contacted us, so he sent it to me, and sure enough, everything was completely destroyed all the way down the line. So yeah, kids, don't do that.
I can't say that was on my bingo card. I knew I was going to talk to you about some things I didn't know before, but never expected you to say that.
Yeah, and we still produce the inducer on a custom basis to this day. There's a lot of work in the sound effects community. It's become a very popular device. So, a lot of the Foley and stuff that you see in movies, we're behind that.
Wow.
And video games. We're getting more requests from people who work for video game studios, which is really interesting.
Yeah.
I would never think that.
Yeah, there's a huge community for that sort of stuff out there. And as we worked, like I said, we initially got a call from this guy in New Zealand, and we worked with him and developed a couple of different things. And eventually that led to producing the inducer system, which is designed specifically for sound effects work. It has an extended frequency response and balanced output so you can plug into your field recorder, all those sorts of things.
My first question will be, do you have anybody geeky enough in the guitar community to try to use an inducer for guitar?
It wouldn't make a lot of sense because you can't, it's a much larger preamp that you wouldn't put in a guitar. It's just using the same pickups, but in another with a different kind of preamp that makes more sense being used outside of a guitar.
Gotcha. They're stereo systems. They give them independent control of the volume for each channel. And then there's also a phase switch for each channel and balanced output. So it's kind of designed to be specifically a gateway for people that are doing sound effects. But it's just another facet of the stuff we do, something that we thought would help a particular community.
Yeah,
and
it's just a matter of giving them a much easier way to use our transducers, because that's what they wanted to do.
Gotcha.
I got contacted. It's like, we've heard about these pickups. How can we use them for this application? And it was like, how would we make this a lot easier?
Yeah, they were initially trying to use the stereo system, but there's an internal preamp that's in the guitar, and then there's an end pin that connects to that, and a cable that connects that to the extra. So they had this, they were trying to basically Velcro everything together to make a unit that would, work for sound effects. And
it worked, but it was awkward.
Yeah, it was really awkward. And plus, you've got all these cables all over the place and stuff to get yanked on and broken. So we made it a lot easier for them to do that.
Awesome. Well, I kind of got you derailed a little bit when I asked for this segue. We had begun talking about how different this next system is. Can you tell us a little bit how the Ultra, I don't want to say the Ultra pickup because it's more of an Ultra series, how this actually goes and improves on what the dual mono had been up until this year?
Well, the idea behind this is I had a couple of different goals for this. One, I wanted to try and make a system that would be as minimally invasive in the guitar as possible, lightweight, and bring a lot of power to the musician. Since we did all these one-offs and custom things for people, I started thinking along that line. What's a way where I could make some of these things available to other people at a a price that wouldn't break the bank and still give a lot of performance? So I was working on this new preamp design, and as we tested that, we came to realize that this actually was, going to be a very viable thing. We got a great sound out of this. I like the new preamp a lot. I think the dynamics of it seem to me to be a step above what we've been doing with the stereo and the Amulet M series. Still has the same low noise floor, great dynamic range, and some of the things that we had done in the Amulet M series, we introduced phantom power for players who didn't want to be beholden to a battery. So phantom power is a way to get around that and be able to power the system without having to rely on the weight and the sort of reliability factor of having a battery on board. And with the Ultra series, I thought it would be a great idea to give the player the choice. And I don't think anybody's done that before. So with the Ultra series, you can actually, by flipping a little switch on the side of the unit, you can either have it run from a 9-volt battery power or be able to run the thing from phantom power. And makes it, there's no way you can really trap yourself into a corner here. So if you're worried about using phantom power and having a problem, you can just flip the switch and now you're on battery power, and vice versa.
Well, and the design of the Ultra preamp allowed for a lot of flexibility and a lot of different things that this could be, which is one of the things that Gary just kept designing and designing. Well, we can do this, we can do that, it can be this, it can be stereo. And the fact that they could all be phantom powered or battery powered was just awesome. That was an exciting development when that happened. It was like, that's great. People don't have to choose one or the other. But all the different configurations and now the multi version of that, well, you've seen, it's a lot of choices. It's a lot of flexibility.
Oh, yeah. I remember calling you guys and calling you back and calling you back. And I still don't know how this one is different than that one. And as soon as you get on the phone, I completely understood it. But if, it's a little bit daunting. If you guys, anybody listening to this program, if you haven't seen the choices now of the Amulet Ultra, you can't really skim it. You have to read it, close your eyes and read it again. And it's not a dig. It's that powerful. You've got to be careful if you want to place an order for one of these. Read all about all of them, because there's probably one that you think is perfect, and I wouldn't be surprised if the one right next to it is even more perfect. And I'll let Gary expand on that, but there's some power there.
Well, that's one of the reasons that I put in those diagrams, those preamp diagrams for every iteration, because I think that helps make it clear. Okay, what's the difference between A, B, C, and D? Well, a lot of it has to do with those thumb wheel controls and what they control. So I'm, hoping the information on the website tries to make it clear. And we love talking with people about this stuff. So if anyone wants to get more info, calling us, emailing us is a really good thing to do, because we will do what we can to clarify and help them make the right choice.
Oh, yeah. I love talking to customers on the phone. Really look forward to that. And when people have questions, it's very satisfying for me to try and help them figure out what might work for them in their particular situation. And that's the nice thing about the mini mixer board. So you have a lot of different possibilities of ways that it can be configured. The idea behind the Ultra is there's 3 basic families. We've got the mono series, which is like the old Amulet M, has the idea that, that the simplest form, there's 2 of our transducers that go on the bridge plate, and it comes out as a mono signal out of the end pin, which is what a lot of guitar players are really used to. They want to just be able to plug a 1/4-inch guitar cable into something and then plug it into their amp or their audio interface or
mixer.
Or mixer, whatever, and have a signal that they can work with. And so at the bottom of the Ultra series is the mono, and it kind of mimics all of those things with a few twists. So the basic thing is you've got this little module that has 2 thumb wheel controls on it that mounts in the sound hole of your guitar. Very lightweight, weighs about half of what a 9-volt battery does. And like we've talked about, it can be powered from battery power or from phantom power. And then you have an end pin, standard 1/4-inch end pin, that goes into the end block of your guitar there. And that's the whole system. So there's minimal amount of cabling. And with this series, we've gotten the weight down as much as we possibly can. There's no metal connectors. Everything has been made extremely lightweight. So if you're using one of these systems and you're phantom powering it, you almost can't even tell that it's installed inside the guitar. It adds so little weight profile to the instrument that you can't really detect that anything's been added to the guitar.
And then the stereo.
Then the stereo system. The stereo is the same thing. It just takes the idea that you've got two pickups. So why not have a separate output for each of them? So you can have the pickup that's on the bass side of your bridge plate and the pickup that's on the treble side of your bridge plate. And if you use a stereo cable out of the end pin, a TRS cable, you can split those two pickups and you can treat them independently. So if you have a small mixer or something like that, or one of those things like Grace makes, the Alex or the Felix or something, you can have the pickups plugged into that. You can have independent volume control of the transducers. You can EQ them separately. So if you want to add a little beef to the low end, or if you've got a boomy guitar and you want to chop a little bit out of the low end, you can do that without crippling the mids and the treble part of your instrument. So it gives you a lot of flexibility. You can add independent effects to each of those pickups. So, and then the next family in there that we went to is, I thought, well, it would be great to have an additional channel aside from the two channels for our acoustic lens transducers. And that way you could add something else to the sound. Could be a magnetic pickup, could be an electret microphone. We've made provisions to power electret microphones in the preamp. Could be an under saddle transducer. So it opens up a lot of capabilities for musicians to blend different sounds to kind of get their ideal acoustic sound. Some people are, let's say you're a magnetic guy, you're a magnetic pickup guy, and that's your main sound. You use a Sunrise, or you use a Fishman magnetic pickup, or one of those types of things. But you want to add something to it. With our system, you can have it set up so the magnetic is the main part of your sound, but you can blend something else into that sound. Could be an under saddle transducer, could be a microphone, something like that.
So what you're talking about right there is not even having the Trance audio lenses as part of the heart of the system. You're actually reminding me on air, something I forgot to say earlier. You can actually buy the Ultra and use it to power non-Trance audio sources.
Oh, absolutely. When I designed this system, I thought it would be great because all our systems before this have been designed around the acoustic lens. So the gain that's available, the way the preamp works and everything is pretty much designed so that they will do a really great job with our pickups, but they'll also be versatile enough so that you can set the gain and get the amplification range you need for other pickups as well. So could be an under saddle transducer, a magnetic,
or soundboard transducers.
There's a bunch of those out there, which includes K&K and other soundboard type transducers.
We can help a lot of different people, whether or not they're using our pickups.
Yeah. Because for a lot of guitarists, one of the things a lot of guitarists don't realize is if you're using a passive pickup system, and I've seen people say, well, I don't want anything in the guitar. I just, my system works fine. It's a passive system. Let's say a K&K or an under saddle transducer, any of these things that use a piezo type high impedance pickup signal. If you're going out of your guitar to go to an external preamp, you're much more likely to have sound problems, being able to pick up hum and buzz. Every foot of cable between your guitar and the preamp sort of sucks the life out of the signal that your pickups are using. And the solution to that is to have an onboard preamp, and that's part of what we're offering with this. The ability to do that, but not to really impact the guitar in any problematic way.
Yeah, and that's one of the great things about how small and light this preamp is. Because there is something in your guitar, but it's tiny and it's light.
And if you have an onboard preamp in your guitar, now you can run even a mediocre type cable for a long ways without picking up hum or buzz or losing any of the oomph out of your signal to get to the...
We've made 100-foot, 200-foot cables.
Yeah, we're just getting ready to ship another one.
We're about to send another 100-foot cable to Beck. So...
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
he was one of the first people. He made a video some years ago where he was on a sort of rotating platform and moving around, and we wanted to have a was it 100-foot cable or was it longer?
It might have been a 200-foot cable at that point, but yeah, we've made a bunch of really long cables for him.
But the thing is our
That's
system
crazy.
enables you to do something like that. And what people will notice also is if you have an onboard conditioning your signal first, the quality of the cable doesn't matter as much, and also you don't get the kind of noisy cable problem that you get with these things with passive systems that don't have an internal preamp. Moving the cable around generates a bunch of noise, so you get a bunch of popping and crackling and stuff like that. And having an onboard preamp eliminates that problem. You can now have a silent external cable that can be as long as you want and doesn't have to be like a really expensive cable to not impact the quality of the sound. Even less expensive cables will work just fine.
And yet, even though you say that, someone out there listening to this show, they want to keep their passive system in their guitar, not cut any holes, not do anything different, and they'll spend $500 on a cable rather than spending $250 on a beautiful new system. And I dare anybody who has the opportunity to try it, anybody out there considering weighing the, no pun intended, weighing the options, the Trance Ultra system, phantom powered versus whatever they've got on their guitar already, your system has to be lighter and more powerful and more current. I mean, there's no way anybody could do the phantom version of one of your new systems and complain about what's inside the guitar, how much it weighs, or what it sounds like.
Oh no, absolutely not. And that was by design. And the nice thing about this system is if you have a passive system already, you have the one thing done to your guitar that you need is you already have an end pin in the guitar. So, if you're using a K and K or you've got a magnetic pickup, you already have an end pin jack of some sort in it. With our new preamp system, we make a little input connector that will terminate in the type of plugs you need to plug in your magnetic pickup or to add your K and K pickups to it. And it gives you all of these advantages with no real disadvantages. Doesn't add weight to your guitar or complexity or anything.
And even if you're using, anything that's installed can be uninstalled without any damage to your instrument, including the pickups if you're using our pickup.
Something else that's worth mentioning too is this is a modular system. So if you have a user that starts out at the very low end, let's say they want to get just the mono system with volume and a tone control, the preamps are modular. They're held in at the sound hole with Velcro, so it's a matter of just grabbing the preamp and prying it off of the sound hole and plugging the connectors into the back. So as the player grows and decides that they want to try to explore more things, once they already have our pickups and our end pin assembly in their guitar, it's very easy to swap the preamps. So you can move from mono to stereo. And then if you decide you want to go to the multi and add another pickup system along with that down the line, we sell the preamps independently. And you can just upgrade the preamp without having to buy everything else.
I can vouch for that. I've had 4 of them now in my sound hole.
Fun, isn't it?
Yeah, it's great because I think players at different times, they have different requirements for what they want to do. If you're just playing at home or you're doing a small local gig, but if you go into the recording studio,
maybe you want stereo.
Yeah, maybe you want the stereo, or as your stage show grows, you start out as a solo artist, and as you add more instruments to your repertoire and your compositions become more creative or more demanding, we give you a chance to grow your system without having to start all over again.
Oh yeah, having an upgrade part of it, and not just that, somebody who might actually have the original Trance Audio Amulet M, like me, to go to something where you want to, convert to the Ultra. You don't have to buy the lenses again, and maybe more importantly, you don't have to do anything to the bridge plate or your existing installation. If you already have a successful pair of Amulet lenses connected, and you want to upgrade from the 2023 version to the new stuff, buy the Amulet Ultra that would accept the connection from those existing lenses. And really, that's not even anything you can't do at home.
Oh, yeah, it's the upgrade. We call it the upgrade systems because, the Amulet Stereo, Amulet M's, any of our pickups that are out there can be really easily transitioned into an Ultra system if someone wants to do that. And it's a pretty great thing.
Yeah, so people that have the Amulet M can move up to stereo if they've been curious about that. And I'm a big proponent of the stereo thing. It's a little more complexity to deal with it externally, but it makes such a really wonderful difference in the sound, even just panning the lenses apart from each other a little bit. Or if you don't have access to a stereo system, just having independent access to the pickups is a really wonderful thing. When I was doing stuff for Michael Hedges, one of the things he pointed out to me is a little trick that he used to make his guitar sound more present was using the low end of the guitar, which for him was a magnetic pickup. He had a Sunrise in his guitar, and he would run that through a chorus unit set just to pitch shift only and moving very slowly. And then the treble side, the transducer side of his sound, the top end part of the sound, he would run through a reverb unit. So each of those had an independent effect. Combining those two together made for, it didn't sound affected, it made the guitar sound sort of more hyper realistic, brought it, more in your face and made it more defined sounding. And clearly, when he switched off those effects, there was a huge difference and it sounded kind of flat. So it was great in that it made the guitar sound more like the guitar in a recording and a concert setting.
So there are a lot of creative ways to use this stuff, but it can also be used very simply too.
Yeah.
And I know we've talked about Gary doing some demo recordings of different things done different ways. So all of that's in process, and hopefully it will happen soon. Yeah. But yeah, stay tuned to our website and our YouTube channel.
Yeah, there's a lot of subtle ways that you can use these different things to help refine your sound. And the choices that we've given the player for each of these levels, the mono, the stereo, and the multi, are designed to sort of help people for however they might want to work with our system. I'm getting off in the weeds here.
We're going in the weeds, Maury. Bring us back home.
Oh, the weeds are the best place to be. I love the weeds. But no, I do want to circle back a moment. You made a very good point about stereo. As you were talking about that, my simplistic mind started going back to, I use the Bose Tower a lot. I don't do anything stereo. I don't really have an opportunity to have a stereo spread. And, 2 sentences into your explanation, you reminded me why that's not the right thing to think. You can definitely use the stereo to independently treat EQ or effects, the bass lens and the treble lens, and not even enter into the argument about making them sound wider. So if anybody listening to this wants to add a little bit of something to just the bass side lens, a stereo out is the way to go, and it's got nothing to do with where you place them panoramically. So thank you for bringing that back up again too. And I'm the guy that's singing the praises all the time of this product. And I kind of went into this conversation thinking, well, I know everything about this, but I'll let them talk because someone else has to learn something. Of course, I'm wrong. Of course, there's always something to learn. And I really do want to thank you guys for taking the time today, because this is a conversation, been a long time coming. We tried 3 different times to get Spoon involved, and he's really regretful that he is traveling today back to New York City. I do want to take this opportunity to thank you both, Gary and Laurel from Trance. Can you please take a minute to remind our viewers and our listeners where they can go to find more information about the Trance Audio lineup of products?
Tranceaudio.com. Email contact from there, phone contact from there. Yeah, visit us on the web at tranceaudio.com. There's lots of info there, and we're happy to answer questions. We've got info on how to email us and call us on the phone from there. And
yeah, I can't stress that enough. I'm always trying to get people to give us a call here, because sometimes having email communications back and forth, it's slow, and I don't all of the pertinent questions get asked that way. It's much easier sometimes just to talk to somebody on the phone. That way I can quiz them about their setup, the type of stuff they're trying to accomplish, what type of music they're playing, what their audiences are like. And we can find ways to help people. I think with the new Ultra system, we're making something that just about any kind of acoustic musician would find useful. That's why we have so many different versions of this. And in there, I think there's something that's custom made for just about anybody that calls us and wants to use our products.
And I'm just laughing now at remembering Doug Young did a really nice video, and admittingly on camera, he wasn't sure how many versions of the Amulet Ultra there were, and he was kind of wondering while he's taping that video, you're probably making more. How many versions of the Ultra can you actually say are, as of this taping, are actually available?
There are 19 versions currently.
Currently 19 versions, and I assure you, I'm still thinking of more in my head.
Please stop. Please stop.
Well, I hope you guys have enjoyed this program. If you've watched this, you can go into the future and you can say that you remember Trance Audio and you knew them way back when there were only 19 versions of the Ultra systems. I'm so deeply sorry that Spoon couldn't join us today. I know once I talk to him later, he's going to have a bunch of questions that we'll have to do a round 2 sometime. But I do want to sincerely thank you guys for watching. From all of us at Martins and More and our friends at Trance Audio, thanks for listening.
Bye.
Goodbye, everybody. It was great talking. Thanks for coming around.